Hello and welcome to The Horse Show with me, Chris Stafford. If you want to follow us on social media and engage in the conversations that we have here on the podcast, then you can do so at Wisp Sports on any of those social media platforms. And also email us if you prefer to info@wispsports.com. And if you're listening to us on your podcast app, then do check us out online at wispsports.com, where you'll hear a lot more stories from around the world of women's sports. We cover everything here at Wisp Sports. But on this show, it's all about horse sports. And my guest this week is Arizona-based dressage rider and trainer Cyndi Jackson, who you'd think would have a full-time job with 10 horses in training and a roster full of clients to teach. In any event, this is usually enough for most equestrians in a day, but for this 43-year-old wife of Philip, her husband, who's also known as PJ, and a mother of 7-year-old Ronin, it's a day that starts when most people are asleep at 3 a.m. Yeah, that's the time Cyndi will be out on the trail. That's not the riding trail, but the running trail for a couple of hours. Sometimes with a running partner, and sometimes she's out there alone, where she's dodging the rocks and the rattlesnakes in the canyons of southern Arizona as she trains for marathon races and ultramarathon. But before her next race, Cyndi's goal is the challenge of running the rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon. So agility is key, as of course is her fitness. Now her next race goal is the 2022 Boston Marathon. Now, after running, Cyndi then starts her day in the barn, where training switches to dressage. She's a student of Heather Blitz and rider biomechanics, and her dream has long been to become an Olympian. And with a promising young horse in training, she's excited about this journey. So I caught up with her to hear how she manages to balance both her riding career and her running ambitions. Cyndi, hi, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I wanted to tell your story because our mutual friend, Heather Blitz, who you train with, shared some backstory to you, and that you, as well as riding dressage, you also are a runner and ultramarathons and basically going long distances as well. So I want to talk about both careers, really. So since we're on the horse show, let's start with your riding career. How did that all begin? Have you been a lifelong rider, Cyndi?
Yeah, I started riding with my mom when I was 11. We, on Sunday mornings, used to do some activity together. And for a long time, we went bowling every Sunday morning. That was like our mom-daughter thing. And my dad accidentally got us tickets to go ride at this little, dude ranch type place here in town one Sunday, and we never bowled after that. So we took up horses immediately. Like soon as I got on horseback, that was all I wanted to do. So we did a lot of renting trail horses for a long time because Dad didn't ever want to own a horse. And then we eventually transitioned into, and that was when I was 11 when we started riding. We transitioned into we'll only lease a horse because, then you don't have to buy it. But then, we needed tack, and then we needed, then that horse got, taken away. So then we wanted to buy something, and we just slowly, built up and kind of kept talking Dad into a little bit more as we went. But yeah, it originally started just that he accidentally got us tickets for trail riding.
So that's where it all began. Then when did it start to become competitive, and why dressage?
So one of the horses that I got my hands on to lease was a 4-year-old mare named Maxine, and she was a quarter horse Tennessee Walker cross, and she had a little tipped ear, like she was missing part of her ear. We started leasing her. The owner was like a foreign exchange student that had come out here for a year worth of school. And the owner of the ranch had given the horse to her. And then she went back to, I think, Switzerland. And, so we basically had like a freely, just cover the horse's expenses for kind of as long as we wanted to. And so she was my first horse that I like kind of became mine. We leased her for, I want to say 10 years, before the lady finally just gave her to us. And I tried every discipline I could with her. I chased cows, I ran barrels, I jumped things like in the desert. I did basically anything I could get my hands on, but I kind of hooked up with an event trainer and started doing like low level eventing. And I evented her through training level. And she just didn't have a ton of scope. She was, small and just not, training level was maxing her out. So at that point, I was very much in a situation where like, I didn't care what sport I got into with riding. I just loved this horse and I was going to do whatever sport she needed to do. And she was actually a cute little, like kind of cute in the dressage ring. She always would be first in dressage. And then stadium would go well, and cross country, we would always work our way down the list of riders, so I got into dressage with her because that was what she did best. I always say, like, if she jumped better, I'd probably be an event rider today. I just transitioned into whatever she needed to do. So that's how I got into dressage. That was what my horse wanted to do most. So
you just followed your horse. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, it is. And we just, she was my best friend. She raised me through my naughty teenage years. And I eventually showed her through the I-1. I got my bronze and silver medal on her, and then proceeded to, like, while I was getting my medals on her, give up down lessons to her with other, with kids or adults, started my business kind of using her also as my lesson horse. And eventually clients, got their bronze and silvers on her as well. So she was amazing. And she, I had to let her go when she was 33, just about 2 years ago. I finally had to let her go to a really severe colic, and we didn't want to put her through obviously any kind of surgery or anything at that age. And so we said our goodbyes. So that was a very tough time for me.
I bet it was. That's an amazing relationship, but what an innings. 33 is a very good life.
I know. And she was the first horse my son ever sat on and got to ride. And so she really was with me through, like I said, like my naughty teenage years and growing up and picking a career and, getting married and having my son. Like, she was there for everything. So it was hard letting her go, but I'm grateful for all the years with her. So
yes, absolutely. Now, how did then you transition from there? How did you get this into a business? How did it become so, from obviously a hobby initially, or, you grew into horse sport, obviously, but how did it actually then turn into a business for you, Cyndi?
So I always wanted to do something with horses. Like, I definitely, like, as soon as I got the bug, I wanted to, train at some point. But I think right out of high school, growing up, I literally just, if it had four legs and hooves, like, I was riding it. I rode anything and everything anybody would let me get my hands on. And at one point at a barn that we were boarding at, there was, a couple of people there that needed some riding done on their horses. So I, of course, started picking up rides, doing stuff like that, and charging, $20 a ride or whatever, like, just get out there and do something. And I was, in the meantime, I was, waitressing at Denny's on the graveyard shift and trying to go to school. And I just couldn't make up my mind, like, what to go to school for. I ended up, kind of looking at the equine program at Scottsdale Community College, and was kind of starting to dig in there. And a friend of mine that was working for the Chronicle of the Horse called me one day and said, "Hey, there's a barn manager position open at a new dressage stable in Scottsdale here. And it's about to be an ad that they were going to put in on the Chronicle." And she said, "Here's the number." So I called, and it was Tracy Ronick, who had just opened up a new barn. And I called her and chatted with her, and the barn manager position was already filled, but they were looking for a working student position. So I connected with them. They came out, watched me ride my little quarter horse Tennessee Walker, who I was showing at third level at the time. And I think I was 21 when that happened. And so I basically, at that point, I think I was working as a travel agent at my parents' travel agency. is what I had transitioned into, and then was training some horses part-time. But at that point, I quit my day job and started as a working student for Tracy, and then picked up kind of leftover clients from Paula's, the other trainer there at the barn that she used to travel to, that she wasn't traveling anymore. So I picked up all of her clients and was traveling around teaching lessons, and like officially started my business then at 21.
And now, a few years later, we'll say, how...
Yeah, just a few.
What does your business look like now?
Right this minute, it is on the smaller side. I've actually downsized a little bit. At one point, I had, 20 horses in training and an assistant trainer, and was really, really busy. And I've, in 2012, I had a bunch of just like things happen, like doors close in my career. Like a really good horse that I was being sponsored on, the owner went through kind of an ugly divorce, and decided she was going to sell him, and she was shutting her facility down. And, I just had like a series of things happen where it was like, it became obvious to me that if I was going to decide to have a child, that was a good time to do it. I was 34, and I felt like my little clock was ticking. So, and like I said, the universe kind of was guiding me towards like, now's a good time. So at that point, like I left my business. I lost a few horses. And when I kind of downsized, when I moved facilities, a few people didn't want to go along with me. They may move to a different place. And so I went ahead and got pregnant and had my son. And ever since I've had him, I've just not wanted to build back too big, because I really enjoy being able to have some free time to spend with him as well. So right now I currently have like between 10 to 12 horses in training, and I like to keep it about that. And I don't have an assistant trainer anymore with a bunch of extra business, because I just want to be able to be responsible for the clients that I have myself. I want to be able to do, if they're training with me, it's because they want to train with me. And so I want to be able to make sure I take care of everybody. So that's kind of what I'm downsized to right now.
And how many horses are you competing at what level now?
I currently have, my top horse is a horse named Florison, who his barn name is Jack. And he is an 8-year-old Oldenburg that I have a client, Ann Damiano, that owns him, and she's been with me for about 17 years now. She still has her original horse that she came into training with, this off the track thoroughbred, who's 26. And then she bought a 3-year-old that we trained up for years, and then he finally had to be retired for degenerative suspensory disease. And then we bought Florison as a 3-year-old and have been training him up. So he's now doing the developing pre-St. George and is hopefully going to compete at Lamplight this summer in the developing pre-St. George. And we just, with him, he and I just made the developing rider list for the USEF. So we're super excited about that. So he's kind of my main squeeze, riding wise. And then I show also a 6-year-old that's owned by one of my other clients, Carrie Kelsey, fairly regularly. And then of course I'll show any of my clients' horses if they need me to get them in the ring and expose them to stuff or whatever. I'm always happy to do that. But those are like my 2 horses that are kind of mine to ride. I have also a 3-year-old that's just started under saddle that I'll be showing, spring of next year, and see how he goes for a few years before the client takes him over. So, and my 2-year-old that I bought recently that, we'll get him started next year. So he'll obviously be mine to ride. So those are kind of my main ones.
Well, I mentioned earlier how you train with Heather Blitz, and you have been for a little while now. What is it about her style and her training methods that have obviously been an attraction for you and work for you as a rider?
I was just talking with somebody about it this weekend, because I actually got to not just ride with her this weekend, but I got to kind of audit a few extra lessons. And I was saying, what's so special about her. I mean, obviously she's a very good rider. She's very, very good on biomechanics. She is not afraid to really, like, no matter where you're at in your riding career, she's not afraid to really talk to you about your position and how your position can negatively or positively affect the horse. So she's really, I mean, my first couple lessons, I felt like had like an overhaul of biomechanics and like changing some things in my position, but it's really had an incredible effect on my main horse, Jack. But what I was saying this weekend is it's just really cool watching her, like, whether it's, my really nice horse that's, made the developing list, or it's, another professional with her Grand Prix horse, or it's somebody that's just crossing over from the Arab world on a little training level Arab. Like, the way she teaches everybody is like the same. Like, she has the same, enthusiasm and dedication to like every single rider. Like, there's nobody that it's, you know what I mean? Like, I've been in some clinics before where it's like, they're really excited about certain horses, and the others, you can tell that they're just kind of getting by and, like getting through the lesson, but it doesn't it doesn't excite them. And she just doesn't give that feeling at all. Like, I feel like everybody who takes a lesson with her, like, gets her attention 100% in her 100% effort from her, which is really nice.
Absolutely. Well, I want to now move on to the other part of your sporting life, but we'll be taking a short break and we'll come back and talk about that. Well, Cyndi, as I mentioned, you have a second sporting career almost of running. And how do you fit that all in? Now, we've heard about your business and, you've got 10, 12 horses there. You're obviously a busy woman, a wife, a mother, a trainer, running a business. How do you fit the running into all of that?
I get up really early in the morning.
Okay, what's really early?
As a rule, like, if I get to sleep until 3:30, I'm pretty happy. But honestly, in the summer, there are days that I get up earlier, like 2:30 or 3 a.m. So, I get up very early. I have 3 days a week that I get out on the trails, and run outside. And in the summer, I'm always my running is always competing with, the cooler temperatures with my horses. There's only so many hours in a day that that it's like survivable here in the summer. So on my days off, I'm up super early out on the trails, and on my work days, I am at the barn really early. So it's even on my non-running days or non-outside running days, I'm up that early to get to the barn and get horses started. So
going out running then at 3 a.m., it's still dark, presumably. I mean,
yes.
You're in Arizona, but it's still dark.
Yes, it is. I have a very bright bike light that I use as like a handheld flashlight. And then I also wear a headlamp.
So how long are you running for then typically? And you told me before that you're not actually training for anything specifically this year. It's going to be in the new year, your next race.
Well, I'm not training for a race this year, but I am training for an adventure in the fall. In October, I'm planning to do rim to rim to rim at the Grand Canyon with a group of friends. So we'll be running from the South Rim down into the canyon and up to the North Rim. And then we will eat a little bit of food and repack our bags and head right back down and go across back to the South Rim again. So that is actually what I'm currently training for right now.
And how far would that be? And you, not a race, it's an adventure. It's a challenge, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's going to be it'll be definitely my longest run at this point. And it's going to be, I think, between 47 to 48 miles round trip.
Okay. There's someone that we've been following and I've talked to in the past, Mr. Walter, who does some really incredible ultra marathons. Do you know her? Have you raced with her?
Oh my gosh, she's incredible. Like, no, I don't know her, but she is like just an absolute amazing beast. She is unreal. Yeah,
she really is. So in terms of distances then, and when you have a challenge that you talked about, the rim to rim challenge that's coming up, what do you need to do in terms of running? How often do you need to run a week, and how far to train for that?
So I'll be running, it's funny. I actually have a running coach that helps me balance out what I need to do to train for things like this, because I have no idea what I'm doing. I just love to go out and run. So I need somebody to tell me, like, this day you need to climb hills. This day you should do a recovery run that's slow and easy, flat, and that sort of stuff. So, or this day you should cross train and do some strength training or cycling or whatever. So I don't actually know how bad it's going to get as the summer progresses, as I build up. But like, for example, this week, just to give you an idea of like what my runs are Monday to Sunday, I had a 3-hour run scheduled this morning that I started at 4:30 because it's my day off. So I got to sleep in a little bit till I got to wake up at 3 and be at the trailhead at 4:30.
I need to know when you go to bed in order to do that kind of.
I go and get in my room and climb into bed at 6:45 at night. And I am usually asleep before 7:30. So I still get, because sleep is when our body recovers. So I feel like sleep is a superpower, like when you want to do all these crazy things. So it's really important to me that I get sleep.
Yeah, because we've heard from Courtney DeWalter, I just mentioned, she had said when she's racing or doing these long distances, ultra marathons,
yes,
that she will actually stop on the trail and lie down and be gone out for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's a dirt nap. Yeah, I have not done that yet. So I have not run far enough to be in need of a dirt nap yet.
Okay. All right. At least you sleep in a bed.
I do sleep in a bed, yes.
That puts it all in perspective. But 3 hours is what it takes then to run.
Well, so that was today's training. I had a 3-hour training run. It was just over 15 miles, and it was hot and muggy this morning. I think that when I got to the trailhead, it was already like 88 degrees. I mean, it was very, very warm this morning. But I was fortunate there was a tiny bit of cloud cover. That was like the saving grace. But yeah, so I did 3 hours today. Tomorrow's a strength training day and a work day for me. And then Wednesday, I have like just a flat 5-mile run. So I'll just probably do that on my treadmill in the afternoon. And then Thursday, I have a 9-mile trail run. So I'll get up super early to get that done before I head to work. And then I think Friday might be a rest day. And I think I have a cycling day somewhere in there. And then I think on Sunday, I have a 12-mile run. So that's basically just like this week. And this is the very beginning of my build up for the canyon, for our adventure. So this is still one of my smaller weeks.
And do you run alone?
Sometimes, I have a couple of girls that are crazy enough to meet me at those really early hours and join me for some runs. So I definitely try to rope people into going with me. But if I don't have anybody to go with me, I'll just go out there and do it on my own.
Do you feel that it's safer if you have someone with you? And is it more competitive for you? Does it help you focus?
I wouldn't say competitive. I actually feel less safe running in my neighborhood on the road than I do out in the desert. Just because there are, occasional homeless people coming around and doing, you know what I mean? Like, I always say like what's morning for me is usually like still nighttime for bad guys. You know what I mean? So like running in my neighborhood at 3:00 in the morning, like that's still like people are still, staggering home from the bar, you know what I mean? So it just doesn't feel very safe to me in my neighborhood. So I don't mind going out on the trails in the dark in the early mornings. I definitely keep an eye out for snakes. And I'm probably not as fast in the dark running as I would be once it starts to lighten up a little bit. But, for me, having like friends out there just, makes the time kind of cruise by, just having somebody to chat with. And we usually are, when we run together, is a conversational pace. Like we're running, but we're not running hard. Like we're chit chatting and talking about our families and our kids and work life and whatever, solving all the problems of the world, out there. in the wee hours of the morning. So
that's what happens on the trail at that time of the morning. I always wondered.
Yep, that's what happens when we're taking sunrise photos. We always get to see the sun come up, which is great. So, it's great. My trail running friends have become like very dear friends. I think there's something about just like sharing those miles. When you think about like I spent this morning, I had 2 gals run with me and we were on the trail for almost 2 hours together. And it's like, when do you really have time to sit down and just talk with a friend for 2 hours? No. In your schedule like that? So it's like these people end up becoming really close friends because you end up covering a lot of ground in 2 hours worth of conversation, When
does the sun come up in Glendale, Arizona then at this time of year?
Right now it's coming up a little after 5 a.m. So it's kind of twilighty, a little before 5. You can, I still use my lights, but you can start to kind of see a little bit better. So, early.
You mentioned mixing this up with strength training, bike training. So it is multifaceted then. Some cross training is it absolutely necessary? Is it just something that you prefer or you've been advised by your coach to do?
I'm advised by my coach, and it is, there's a lot, like I'm 43, like I'm not super young, and the amount of mileage that we end up putting on with this endurance running eventually must waste the muscle to some degree. So you do have to counterbalance that with some strength training to build muscle too. You know what I mean? So it is smart. If I want to stay sound and healthy, strength training is important for me to continue to do. But it is interesting how I can find time for an hour run easier than I can find time for 20 minutes of strength training. Like my motivation for strength training is much less, but I do know that it's important and I do try to get it done.
Yeah. And so in terms of how one sport helps another, we've heard from Heather in the past how mountain biking has helped her riding. So how do you feel that, your strength training, your biking and your running help your riding?
It's interesting because coming after, I didn't start running until I was 39. I had my son at 35. And I will say after having a kid, it was, I didn't gain a ton of weight or was heavy, but I definitely lost some of my basic strength, having time off and growing a baby. So I definitely felt like it was a while before my stamina for riding came back. But when I started running, because I was just going through a couple of difficult scenarios in life that I was just having some anxiety over. And I just went out for a run one day and I felt better. And so it's sort of let's do that tomorrow too. You know what I mean? And then it just turned into something. But I found that the more I ran, and the easier the running got, my stamina with my riding also improved a lot. So that is really, for me, I think it's really helped my riding just with my stamina, getting through a long work day just doesn't feel really hard when I also know that I could go run for 8 hours straight if I need to in a race. You know what I mean? So, and the strength training, definitely the more I strength train, the easier the running is. And cycling, I still have not totally convinced myself that my bike riding really, really helps, but my coach is convinced it is. And I have to say, I know a lot of triathletes that can go off of, that kind of training and jump on a trail and whoop me climbing up a hill. So it must help.
It must help. Have you ever been tempted to do a triathlon?
No, I'm terrified of water. I can't see to the bottom of, so I have no interest. I mean, I guess if I found a triathlon where I could swim in a pool, but even then, I don't like getting my face in the water. I'm a big chicken in the water. So I feel like it's probably not going to suit me.
You're doing what suits you right now by the sounds of things. And you had mentioned that you did your first half marathon a few years ago, and you also are aiming for the Boston Marathon, but of course the COVID time warp got in the way there. Talk a little bit about that bigger plan.
Yeah. So I started my first half marathon, 3 months after I started running. So it was a tiny bit premature, which is how I actually met my coach, because my knees were super sore and he's a physical therapist as well. And so I thought, well, I probably should have somebody help me not overtrain, because that was kind of what I was doing. And so so yeah, I did 4 half marathons that year, and I had talked to him like, hey, I really want to run a marathon. And he said that, it'd be good for you to have at least a year of running under your belt before you do a marathon. So that was basically, I picked one that was going to be roughly a little over a year after I started running. And I kind of thought I wanted to qualify for Boston. Like I definitely into the race knew like what time I needed to have to be able to qualify in my age group. So I had my head wrapped around, like, I want to give it a try, but you never really know on that kind of distance, like how your body, how you're going to do. Like, it's just kind of a big question mark for your first marathon. So, for me, I got lucky, like all the things that had been causing me anxiety, like that I was struggling with, that kind of got me into running. I had finally sorted a lot of that out right before the marathon. And so I felt like I kind of set like these very heavy bags that I was carrying down at the start line, and I just flew, and I had a really great race. I did Boston qualify, with about 5 minutes to spare. So it was pretty sure that I was going to make it to Boston, like I was going to make the cut, and I did. And so I had my plane tickets booked, our hotel, my family was all coming. We were all going to do it. And then, 2020 happened and they canceled it. So, so we, then they, we're going to do it in the fall, and they decided to do it virtual, and same thing in the spring. And then they finally opened it up for fall of 2021. We all had to reapply. They made the field size like half as large as usual. And so I didn't, even though I had 5 minutes to spare on the time that I needed, for my age group, I didn't make the cut. So it was like, okay, then I guess I'll do the rim to rim to rim, which is also going to be amazing. So anyhow, so for my age group, I'm 40 to 44 age group. I think for next spring, somebody kind of talked me into it, that if I run in February, and I run, and then I qualify for Boston for 2023. So 2022 February, do the race that I wanted, that I qualified before, and I'm going to do that same race. And if I can get the same time, or even a little bit slower, for 2023, Boston Marathon is on my 45th birthday, which puts me into the next age group. So I can have a slightly slower marathon. So there might be a chance I could pull it off again. And I'll give it a try. So see if I can get in.
Yeah, that's a great goal, Cyndi. Now, what about long term? Do you have a bucket list?
Well, the rim to rim to rim is on the bucket list. Like, I'm super excited about being able to do that. I want to run Boston, but after Boston, I'm just, I don't know. After I do rim to rim to rim, I think I'll have a little better idea of like what distance is kind of my limit. Like I feel like if I can do that adventure, then I could look at a 50-mile race and consider that. See how that goes, and then maybe consider 100K, I feel like maybe one day I might just want to do 100-mile race just to like know what that is. But I know that like that would take a lot of training. So I'm always trying to balance out like my running goals also with my riding goals. And they're sometimes in conflict with each other, and my riding goals are always going to win.
Well, I was going to ask you exactly that. Segued very nicely to our riding goals. Just to wrap this up, before you go, I want to hear what those riding goals are now with everything else going on in your life.
I mean, ever since I was a little girl, like the dream was always to be an Olympian. So that I don't know that there's a lot of horse people that like work their way up in this sport, that's not a fantasy. So obviously, like, I mean, the reality of that and what that looks like with also being a mom and a wife and a daughter and like have my own business here and all of that, I don't know. But I do have a really good horse that I'm getting to ride right now with a really amazingly supportive owner, who is willing to like, let's just see organically, like how this journey develops with him. And if things look like they're heading in a really positive, like international direction with him, like we will figure out how to make that work. So, I mean, if that manifests into something, like I'll fully embrace that and take it as far as we can go comfortably. But if that also doesn't happen, like I've just gotten to a place in my life where I'm super content. Like I love the life that I get to live today. And I always say, like, if this is as good as it gets, like I have totally won. You know what I mean? Like I've totally gotten a great deal out of it so far. So I'm really open to whatever kind of comes of things, you know?
Yeah, well, certainly some wonderful sporting dreams and goals there to aim for, Cyndi, and a very interesting life combining those two sports. So I want to wish you the very, very best of luck with both of them.
Thank you.
You'll have to tell us how the rim to rim to rim goes and how this exciting new horse, where he goes too.
Yeah, lots of good things on the horizon.
Yeah, plenty.
Yeah.
Well, stay fit, stay cool out there, and stay.
Yeah, right. All those things. We'll do our best.
And thank you for taking the time to come on the show and tell us your story, Cyndi. It's been great fun.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
Well, there's some inspiration for you, and we'll have a lot more stories from around the horse world and indeed around the world of women's sports right here for you at Wisp Sports. Do check out some of our other shows here from Triathlon. We have a weekly news desk as well, and we also have a rugby show. You name it, we've got it covered here at Wisp Sports. You can catch us online at wispsports.com and follow us on social media at Wisp Sports. We'd love to hear from you, so do leave your comments or DM us anywhere on social media. Until the next time, thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.